Thanks for joining me, everyone. I'm Allan. I'm a designer. I work at Red Hat, part of the desktop team here, and I'm also part of the Workstation working group. So I'm part of the team that puts together Fedora Workstation for each release. So good evening. So yeah, it's great to see you all here. Obviously, we sadly don't have Fedora 37 yet, but I've been using it for a while. A lot of people have already been using it for a while. It's a great release. There's some really nice features in there. And I'm just going to spend the next half hour talking about a few of my favorite features in the new release. No slides. I'm just going to demo the new release and talk about it while I show some of the features. So in a second, I'll share my screen. I've got the chat here on my phone. So if people want to chat while I talk, I'm happy to try and respond as we go, try and make it interactive. This is supposed to be fun, but yeah, I'll hopefully leave some time for Q&A at the end as well. So let's see if screen sharing will work. Wish me luck. Yes. Okay. Great. So I should say, as well as my work downstream in Fedora, I also work upstream as part of the GNOME project. And some of the features that I'm going to be showing today, I've been involved with at a design level. So I'm happy to take questions or comments or feedback about all that stuff as well. And most of the things I'm going to be talking about today are part of the GNOME 43 release, which is what makes up a good chunk of Fedora 37. But it needs to be said that while these are GNOME features, they're also Fedora features, right? Like making these things work well as part of Fedora takes a lot of work. We have people working across these communities to make them part of the final release. So, first feature that I want to talk about today is quick settings. So, if we go up into the top right here, we have the status indicators here, and we have this menu. And this menu has been completely redesigned for Fedora 37. In the past, we called this the system status menu, hopefully for obvious reasons. And for Fedora 37, this has been completely revamped. So what we have here along the top, we have battery status, a button for taking screenshots. So if I use that, I get thrown into our interactive screenshot tool here. We have a button to open settings, lock the screen, a menu for powering off or switching user or logging out. And we've got the sliders for audio and for screen brightness, which we previously had. And then we've got these toggles. And the toggles are really the new thing. Like we previously had some buttons, the sliders, but the toggles are new. And this is the heart of the new design. You've got these buttons that you can easily click to change common settings. And the goal here is just to make all of these settings quickly accessible. The previous design we had was a series of submenus, which worked pretty well for seeing what the state of your settings was. But to change things, you had to kind of open them up and dig into each one, which was a lot of work and didn't really fit some of these settings very well. If you've got something like your dark mode toggle here. Like, let's give that a go. Oh, isn't that nice? That doesn't really work in the sense as a menu. It's much better as a toggle button. So we have this button-based UI here. And this is just a really nice way to quickly change your settings. I'm not going to steer clear of the airplane mode button. I don't want to use this right now. But for the others, you can quickly switch between things, dig into them. So this is just like a nice update. It's similar to what other platforms have, where there are kind of equivalent kind of quick settings UIs out there for the platforms. This is our take on that. It's maybe worth mentioning that this isn't just reworking an existing UI. We have tried to add new capabilities here, and there are things that you can do with this that you couldn't do before, which I think is really nice. It's definitely an upgrade. So the screenshot button, which I previously showed you, that's new. That's really nice to have because previously we didn't have a graphical way to use that tool, and that's important to have for accessibility in all kinds of different scenarios. The dark mode button, we didn't previously have that. So in the past, if you wanted to enable dark mode, you had to go into the settings. Now it's right here. Another thing to mention that is new are these audio menus for switching between both output and input devices. This is something that people have been asking for a long time. They really wanted. So it's really nice to have those in there now. Anything else that's new here? Oh yeah, just one small thing which I really like, and I'm not going to demo this now, but the VPN toggle here, if you click this, it will, when it's off, it will connect to the last used VPN, which is great for me because I have a long list of configured networks. I use precisely one of them. And it's just really nice not to have to dig through the list every time. Like, you just click the button and usually it does what you want. So that's really nice. So this is the first iteration of this. It might seem like a simple feature, but there's actually quite a lot of work here, particularly around the networking. I think that's where the bulk of the complexity lies. This supports all the kind of networking features that we have in the desktop already. So if you're doing Bluetooth tethers, USB tethers, mobile connections, Wi-Fi hotspots, those all continue to work. And that's where a lot of the development time went for this, making sure that this worked with all of those features. With it being the first version, inevitably there's going to be a few things that aren't quite right, and we're looking to resolve in the next version. So the observant amongst you might notice that Bluetooth is currently missing a menu. So that's currently in process. You might also have noticed that my wired network is missing a name. I don't know why that is, but we are we're tracking that issue. And we're looking at some other changes, like adding some smaller status strings here, so you see more of the network names. You can see they're getting truncated at the moment, and that's something we'd like to avoid. So we're looking to improve that. The other thing I'm really interested in is making this customizable. So that would mean allowing you to remove toggles that you're not interested in so much, and also potentially add other toggles which we don't show by default currently. So that'll be really nice. Whether we will get that for 38, I don't know. It's probably a bigger ask. but it's certainly something we're interested in upstream and investigating. And I think that'll be really nice to have in the future. Okay, you have that bug in Arch as well, Luna. All right, okay. Well, yeah. There is an issue for that in the shell issue tracker. If you want to chime in there, that would be cool. Okay, so that was my first feature. Anyway, it's probably one of the most prominent features in 37 Workstation. So I hope people like it. I know I do. The second feature I'm going to talk about is files, also known as Nautilus. So for Fedora 37, M43, files has been ported to GTK4. Which may not sound like the most interesting feature change, but it's notable for a few reasons. The first of these is that it was just a massive amount of work. I dug into the change set before this talk. The main merge request that for the port was, I think, about 11,000 lines of code changed. I think it was about 4.5 removed, 6.5. No, 6.5 added. 6.5 removed, 4,500 added. And that was just like the main merge request. Like there was a whole series of merge requests leading up to that, preparing for that change. There were like dozens of merge requests afterwards doing polish and updating the UI and making everything look good. So this was huge, and it's something that had been planned for, I don't know, well before GTK4 even came out. I think we first started talking about this in 2018 or something. So huge amount of work. Just goes to show the kind of effort that needs to go into some of these core apps, these core components, to keep them up to date with the platform. The other reason to care about this is that, while it was a port from one toolkit version to another, there's a huge amount of work that went alongside that to refine and polish the UI. So we're bringing the UI up to speed and up to the kind of current recommended design practice and so on. So I can talk you through a few of those changes now. One thing that you might notice, just incidentally, is some of the styling has changed here. Like these grids and lists have the nice rounded corners on them, a nice selection color, and so on. And the same is true on the sidebar here. And the search lists similarly have this nice style. One thing that we have in the new version is all of the menus have been redesigned. Like they've all been, we did like this big analysis of every menu in the app and reorganized them, refined them. Anyone who is on the current version, the old version, or remembers it, will remember that some of these context menus were huge, sprawling things, and they're much more compact and streamlined now. So we have this nice open menu that you can go in and out of. And all of these menus, they're consistent now, so everything is organized correctly and should make sense. Another change we have here is we have new properties windows. So they just have this nice new modern style. They have this nice feature for opening a parent folder, which is pretty useful. That's one click. These nice transitions, the kind of thing that you expect from modern GTK apps. What else have we got? Oh yes, the new open with dialogues are really nice. So this is the kind of thing that we had before, but the really nice thing is we have this control here for setting the default handler for the file type. Previously, that used to be in the preference dialog. So what would happen is, the first time you go to use this thing, it's trying to open a file with an app that you don't want, and you maybe change it once, like so. And then the next time you go to open it, it's kind of back, trying to open it with the app that you don't want again. And you have to remember or figure out that it's in the properties and you have to go in there and change it. Well, we fixed that now. So it's just you go to open the file with whatever app you want. And as you're doing it, you've got this option right there to change the default handler, and it's done. And now every time you go to open that file, it opens with the app you want. So that's just a really nice little change. It's the kind of polish work that we've been doing throughout this process, just to smooth off those rough edges. Another nice little change here is that we have this window is adaptive now, so you can shrink it down and it dynamically scales to this narrow width. The sidebar is popped in here. It becomes an overlay. And we've got the back and forward buttons and the view buttons at the bottom here. And this change primarily came out of the mobile work and making the core apps adaptive. But it's also really useful on the desktop, right? Like this is a really handy little sidebar thing. You can dock this to the side and switch that over, and then have your text editor on this side. And this is a really handy setup that you can use. And having the full range of capabilities available from this narrow width version is just super useful. So that's really cool as well. So there's a lot to like in the new version of Nautilus. I really like it, as you'd expect. I worked on it, but I think people do really like these changes, and it's worth emphasizing that part of the point of this porting to the new version is all of GTK is all the new capabilities that we get with it, and that's something that we can start really capitalizing on now for future versions. And there's a lot of work going on to revamp different aspects of this app to modernize it. Like we're looking at these grids and how to make those more useful and prettier, which is just something that we couldn't do with the old version and we can now do. So there's plenty of really nice stuff in the pipeline for files now that we've got over this really big hurdle of the GTK4 port, which has been absorbing a lot of developer time for quite a number of years now. Okay, that was my second highlight of F37. I've got one more to go, and then hopefully we'll have time for questions. I'm going to go on to my final feature here. Keep the comments coming. I can see them in the chat here. Thanks for all of that stuff. So the final feature I'm going to talk about here is device security. Maybe not the most exciting feature, but it's kind of interesting, and I think this is one where it's useful to know a little bit about the background and what's going on here and what's coming in down the pipe in future versions. So this is a new settings panel, part of the system settings. You find it here under privacy, right down at the bottom. Give it a second to look. There we go. What is this? This is a graphical front end to FWUpd's security framework. FWUpd is the tool that we use for updating firmware. And anything that's updating firmware also needs to be concerned with the security of that firmware, because you have to make sure that everything is signed and comes from a trusted source and so on. So this is why we have this security framework. And there's two reasons why we've done this front end. The first is that the amount of malware that is out there, the amount of attacks that are targeting firmware specifically, that's on the increase. It has been for some time, so it's something that we have to care about. The second reason is that currently there are a lot of issues around the security of hardware, of firmware, and of firmware configuration. And that's kind of, we have issues of machines coming out of the factory with they've not been set up correctly. We've got issues with laptops being distributed that haven't been configured correctly. There are issues around manufacturers not providing firmware is correctly signed or not providing updates. And this panel is a way of surfacing those issues, because at the moment, in the past, they've been completely hidden. And if people don't know about them, then it becomes a lot more difficult to improve the situation. So this is our way of trying to work across the landscape, work with manufacturers to improve the security of the hardware that people are being provided with. And so the awareness is critical there. So what is this showing? I should stress, this is a very kind of initial version. There's a lot of UI improvements that are coming down for the next version. We know there's work to do here, but we felt that it was useful to get this out there now, to get early feedback from people. It's fairly hidden, so it's not going to particularly trip people up. But we wanted to get people, trying it as soon as we can. So what have we got here? The first thing we've got is this security level. So this is basically representing all the security tests that FWD is running on the device. And these tests, they look at various things. They look at the hardware itself and its security features. They look at the firmware, and they look at the firmware configuration. And these tests, there's a lot of them. They're changing all of the time, and they change from device to device. So these levels are a way of trying to abstract out all of those tests and present them as something that we can represent across devices. Each one of these is one of these tests. So you can see we're testing for is there a TPM chip v2? So that's a property of the device itself. Is that present? A lot of these other things are firmware configuration. And, it's surprising just how much, how many issues there are with this. I myself, I'm running a ThinkPad, X1 Carbon here. I got it from Red Hat IT. It came to me with misconfigured secure boot. I didn't know about that until I started running this tool. So I personally had like first-hand experience of these kind of issues. I was able to resolve that issue myself as a result of having these settings and trying them out. So it is useful. We have had feedback from people that all of this technical detail is too much, and we're already working on improving how this is presented for the next version. The information will still be present, but it's not going to be as quite as prominent, because for a lot of this, there's not much that you yourself can do about it. It's useful for diagnostics. It's useful for issue reporting. It's useful for it's useful for people who do want to dig into this and try and fix issues themselves. But for a lot of people, this is too much. So we're going to be adjusting the balance here. I know I'm short on time here, so I'm just going to skip through the rest of this quickly. Secure boot status, pretty obvious. We do want to emphasize this. We know that some people do have to disable secure boot, but where possible, it is important that it is enabled. And then the other thing we have here is the events. And this events section, all this is doing is it is representing times when the security status of the device is degraded. So when one of these tests that was in a positive state goes negative. So this is useful for a few reasons. The most obvious one is, this could be an indication that of a bug. Say if you've been shipped a firmware update and there's an issue with that firmware update, maybe the firmware signing has been broken by the update, for example, this will alert you to that. But it is also, it can potentially flag real security issues that might be happening. Like, you've just gone through airport security and you boot your laptop and, maybe it's been tampered with on the other side. And we want a way to inform users about that. So that's the kind of direction that we're coming on from this. It's about taking a more proactive approach to this, which is pretty exciting. We haven't done this kind of proactive security feature as part of the workstation user experience before. And we're going to see more of this coming down the pipeline in the future. Like we're going to see, I think what we'd like to see is when you boot your machine, if there is like a new security flag, we'd like to represent that during boots, because like in all likelihood, you might not want to be logging into your accounts or decrypting your drive if there's the possibility that your machine has been tampered with somehow. So that's something that we're hopefully going to be working on in the future. Right, so that's it. That's just 3 of the highlights in F37. We did quick settings, we did files, we did device security. There's a lot more there. There's all the usual improvements. Lots of great stuff in the new release. Those are just my 3 highlights. I hope you enjoyed them. And thanks for your comments. I'll just see if have I got any questions here? Do I have time? Ability to open files and folders with elevated privileges. I thought we already had some of that already, to be honest. So I'd have to go and check. But I know there has been some work around that. Will accent colors be added anytime soon? There's been a bunch of discussion about that. I think the challenge with accent colors is there's a lot of tug of war over this, right? Like distros want to set their own accent color, users want to set their own accent color, app developers want to set their own accent color for their app. Who wins? So we've got some kind of tricky negotiation to do there, but the new libadwaita tooling does make that stuff relatively easy to do from a toolkit perspective. So yeah, I think that's certainly in play at the moment. Any other questions or comments? New search design. We had a meeting about it yesterday. Yeah, search is being discussed, but there's no serious work planned on at the moment. But there's some kind of technical planning going on at the moment about how to improve shell search. So yeah, I'm excited about that. I hope it happens, but who knows when. All right, thanks very much. Thanks, everyone. Enjoy the rest of the party. I'll see you around. Enjoy 37 when it comes out. Bye, everyone.